So, welcome to the Heartfelt Business Path Chats. Today, I am having Amanda Sheedy of the Good Tonic join me in the Zoom room. Amanda is a clinical Pilates teacher and executive coach. And full disclosure, Amanda and I have been connected now since about 2016. When we both met when we were working at Intersect Co-working in Adelaide City, in the Adelaide CBD, and we've been a very sort of strong, built a strong mateship through these years that we've really been each other's business friends, been each other's sort of support a lot of the time. And Amanda is now with me in the Heartfelt Story Circle, and she's also my Pilates teacher. So we certainly collaborate a lot, right? Don't we?
Yes, we do, Jess. Yes, I can't believe it's been 2016.
Right? Nine years, coming up to 10
Oh,
years.
wow. Yeah. Geez. Yeah, that would be right.
It's nuts. So,
Mm,
but this is really to hear your story of business, which has been, you've got a really you've been through a lot in the last decade, learning
mm,
how to run your business and learning what it is. So I'd love you to share a bit about your story to now with us to get us started.
Yeah, well, I've had my own sort of business now, running my own business for 9 years, it will be. Um, and never started out as a Pilates teacher, of course. So my background is predominantly, before I started my business, corporate. So I worked in like operational management within a corporate environment, change management, all the managements for about 25 years. Started, many moons ago, my very first job was with the Air Force. So I did nearly 10 years with the Air Force. Um, and then come out of that and went into corporate, probably really no surprise, given military is quite a structured, processy, controlled environment. And corporate organisation is probably not too dissimilar to that. Um, and yeah, after all those years of working in corporate organisations, I, was always doing an element of coaching. And, probably what, 2010 to 2000 and sort of like 16, change management became a thing. Um, and so working with sort of the human side of change, if you like. And I sort of my work sort of evolved into that. Opportunities presented itself um, where I was working at the time. And um, it sort of lent, human side, it lent itself to coaching. I got really curious about why did people behave like they behaved, particularly as leaders? Why were they behaving badly as leaders? And what made a good leader a good leader? And why were there so few? In my environment, why was there so few? And then, of course, the another big thing with that for me was, what everyone has got, I think everyone has got talent, everyone's got strengths, whether they, in different areas of the business, some realized, some unrealized. And everyone has something to offer. And I think it's the job of a leader to actually identify what that is and bring it to the forefront. Um, and I got really curious as to why did I know, or why did I see so much talent in individuals, and yet in a group, they just shrunk into the background and didn't really show up or be present or speak up. And that's got me into, because I thought it was just such a waste of talent, waste of opportunity. Like, we could have been such a better team organization, like if we had everyone participating at sort of their full potential. So that's why I suppose I got interested down that coaching path of how do we get the best out of people, and how do they see that for themselves, and I along that then I would, and coaching, like Pilates, is an unregulated environment. It's interesting for me how I've actually landed and work within, two professions that are unregulated, although Pilates is changing. So, I worked with a lot of technical, transactional, like engineers, project managers, sort of sciencey, sort of thinking professionals. And I wanted to be able to, explain or be able to sort of join the dots about, why do they think like they do or why do they behave like they do. So my training then for my coaching certification and everything then went down the sort of like neuro leadership pathway. So, I studied with and got all my coaching accreditations through, through organisers or trainers that were more provided that learning or that science that underpinned all their training programs. And then, yeah, I had always, so, I did that for quite some time. In sort of the last, probably the first 5 years, 6 years of my business, that dominated. And then had always done Pilates. Like I'd done Pilates probably since my late 30s. So, for at least, 15, 16 years. And, when I was coaching leaders and execs, I don't think there was one, not one of them that didn't turn up with, a sore neck, sore shoulder, sore lower back, bad knees, and so, joining the dots for me, it was like, well, what the brain can't deal with, the body will. And so, where, are they holding that tension, stress, trauma in their body? That also prevents them from, putting themselves forward. So that got me curious about incorporating, like, I was already doing a lot of Pilates myself, but interested about teaching and bringing it into my coaching work. But then, I'm now nearly 54. So I was like coming in that sort of mid 40s, late 40s, perimenopause was like, had taken hold. I didn't realize it at the time. But, for me, Pilates was about longevity and about what do I need to be doing now so that I can have a quality of life, ongoing. And I saw Pilates as a great conduit to that. And what was missing for me in that industry at the time was, teachers that were, in the same sort of like age bracket or more than me that had that wisdom, had that learning, had that life experience that could bring all that into the room with them. And I'm big on knowledge. I'm big on that knowledge transfer. So that's what I was craving and looking for. And I just didn't find that in a younger 21-year-old, teacher. I wanted more. And so and that was probably another one of the main driver why I started then studying to be a teacher. But for my own purposes, really not to like to teach as such, to teach others. But I think, it's just been a natural progression that that is what has happened because, I look out and I see so many, particularly, women, whilst Pilates is for everyone, like my niche is probably more female, or for women, that, have got that niggling hip. They've got that, like that shoulder, that, like frozen shoulder is so common in women, sort of like 45 plus, hip tendinopathies, knees start to get sticky. So, for me, it was like, well, everything's connected. And Pilates, whilst isn't, well, I don't know, I'm probably a bit biased. I'll say Pilates is the answer to everything. But yeah, I just saw it as, a key tool for the mind and body, and just developed a genuine, like, really deep curiosity and interest in it. So the balance
Curiosity.
of coaching went sort of like, coaching Pilates, and now it's sort of like Pilates coaching.
Mm.
And it's been an interesting journey for me around almost having two separate businesses, and not wanting two separate businesses, and then how do I like integrate them together under one brand, one website, um, and be comfortable to talk to them under one brand.
That I think, yeah, I'd love to hear a bit more about that now because I think that's a really interesting part of your story. I heard something today that, for the last 100 years, we've talked about the mind, body, and spirit separately. And we're coming into a time and an age where we're going to start talking about them together again because we realize that talking about them separately wasn't the right path. We're getting sicker and more stressed than we've ever been. And that's because exactly
Mm,
what you found is that it needed to be a somatic approach, an in-body approach. And I think I totally resonate with that pain story. As a business owner, when I'm stressed, I get distinct pain in my neck and my shoulder. And of course, you might think but it's literally just my stress that's causing it, the inflammation um, and I think to be in a space with someone that could hold both that and my business, sort of goals and strategies and needs in some way in the coaching is a really compelling kind of offer. But yes, tell us how you did come to, end up marrying them in a way.
so I think I really resisted it for a long time, um, and tried to almost force them together,
Mm.
and tried to look at, well, I knew there was like synergies, but it was like, well, then trying to explain that, and put words around it was a completely, different thing. Um, and I ended up, engaging a coach myself. I'm probably in a fortunate position where I know many different coaches for many different things. And um, I thought I need to talk this out. Like I had all these ideas in my head, all these thoughts in my head, and I had like, like process maps and mind maps forever, like that I'd written out. And didn't really it wasn't sitting well with me. And yeah, it was just um, through a coaching session, I think that it was, I let go of what I thought it should be and went with what I actually really wanted it to be.
Do you
So
think do you think you went with what you felt more than what you thought it should be?
yeah, I would definitely, yeah, I went with more with what I felt more than you know, what the external environment, what is telling me this is, but it should be like this, it needs to be neat and tidy, and you need to be able to describe it all within one sentence,
Mm.
like I just let go of all that really. And probably, in hindsight, I'd been manifesting it, in the background and done all the so it was just really someone actually turning it back on me, or just going, yeah, well, that's what, the process driven, controlled, everything's tied up with a neat bow like Amanda would want. But, you know, um, what does it actually feel like? So, so yeah, so that's sort of how I came with, the good tonic. And the good tonic was like, I really wanted people to feel. So what did I want them to feel after they'd had a session with me? And it was like, I really want them to walk out feeling like that just felt like, sitting down, having a good gin and tonic and a good discussion with a friend, like just what I needed, just what I felt like. Um, so hence the name, the good tonic. Um, and yeah, and now it's all a work in progress. I wouldn't say that, and I think that's probably one thing I've learned over the years of being in business, and is that nothing's ever set in stone or set in concrete. Like it's all one big experiment. So, and nothing is ever, and particularly with the work that, we do in the heartfelt story circle, it's like, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect to release it out to the world. Um, so, go with what you feel is right on the day. And then if you wake up tomorrow and you want to change it, then change it. Like it's no big deal. It's easy to change things. Um, like probably easier to change things now than what it was 10 years ago, 5,
Yeah.
10 years ago.
And it's that learning to trust how you feel a bit more than because we have just been so in our heads for so long. Again,
Mm,
part of that probably last 100 years of capitalist culture probably growing and our need to produce and be more, more, more. Um, and that's all the head stuff, which is all that thinking I should. But yeah, that learning to, and it is easier said than done. So it
mm.
takes practice, you just got to keep having one thing at a time, keep having a crack until it feels kind of more comfortable to err that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah,
And I think then
definitely.
you connect with people more too.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, definitely it's something that it's a skill.
Mm,
I wouldn't say you just wake up one morning and then, like it is definitely a skill. And for, like, the overachievers, the, procrastinators, the in your head people, which, welcome to the club, is me all day, every day. And I don't think those things leave you, like when it's sort of like, part of how you're almost hardwired. It's
mm,
become, for a number of reasons. But I think you get better at managing it and
mm,
don't and not getting stuck in it.
mm. Yeah, I agree. It's like everything, like you said, it's just learning. You're always learning, and to know that you're always learning, to be always learning is actually quite normal, is kind of comforting. Um,
Mm, yeah, yeah. I'm a
so
big one. Yeah. I mean, yes, I was going to go off onto the self-mastery track, which is another one of my passions. And another, sort of name I toyed with, um, a business name I sort of was playing around with. Um, but yeah, self-mastery, it's that forever learner.
mm. And you are. I mean, let's, tell everyone you've basically studied coaching and Pilates to the level of PhD. Let's be honest. There's not many more
Oh, yes.
echelons you
Well,
could climb in those two fields.
I think that's an interesting thing in itself, where I think I see this trend a bit more with women than men as well, where, you know, for us to be able to take action or do something, we feel like we have to like study it to the nth degree and be the professor or the expert in the room before we can actually do it.
Just do it.
Um, and, and of course, that's not the case at all. But it is, um, probably a little bit of that imposter syndrome, coming through at times. Yeah.
I think that's this, as women in business at the moment, that's part of our job, is to start to change this pattern. But
Mm,
we all have it 100%. Everyone I've
yeah.
ever helped has got the same, you're right. We have to prove ourselves, and the obvious way to prove ourselves is to be the most accomplished, learned, studied person in the room, the most expert. But actually, yes, we don't need to be.
Mm,
We really don't need to be. We can, like you
no.
said, just go and do it when things are imperfect. Um,
Yes.
mm.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit of why you do it for the people you do it for now, and maybe a little bit of who those people are.
So I predominantly, with definitely my Pilates work and coaching work, I predominantly work with women that are probably 45 plus and ongoing. And why do I do it for them? Because I feel like, again, they're a bit of a forgotten about demographic, age demographic. So it's like, and I did a post on this a couple of weeks ago, where I think we get to, and I certainly felt it myself, where if I just speak about Pilates, you know, it's so much more about going through the motions and just, doing the number of reps or doing the number of, exercises. And I think a lot of times when we turn up to a class or it's like we're just expected to do as we're told and go through the motions and then, you know, be happy with that and leave. But I think for me, it was like, no, like if people can knowledge is power. And I think, to be able to advocate for yourself, you need to have the knowledge so you can make choices, about what's going to be the right path for you. And so that's very much how I teach. Like I go deep with the work because, whilst I'm always looking at like coaching, it's coaching, teaching the person in front of you. Um, I think if people can understand or women can understand more about, well, how is my right shoulder connected to my left hip, and what's the lack of flexibility in my ankles got to do with my sore knees. When you can explain that in a way that they understand and they can join the dots, it just creates so much more motivation, engagement, and purpose. And it also helps with that mind-body connection of, being able to get inside of yourself and be able to feel those imbalances, so that you're able to, focus more on one side than the other, or notice if you're rolling your feet out or rolling your feet in. So yeah, so that's why it's important for me to have the knowledge to learn, to pass that on to others. But also, like, I just see so many women, as well, that, you're at that stage, usually 45, 50, early 50s, where your kids are probably maybe getting, sort of mid late teens, but still very much, you're in the year 12, maybe first year uni, but you're still having to show up a lot as a mum and like drive kids here, there, and everywhere. And then also aging parents, like you're managing that as well as trying to run a business, and it's exhausting. And I think somewhere along the way of all that, women they get lost, they lose their identity. It's like, what did I actually enjoy doing? Who am I? Like, and forget about any time for exercise. Um, and it's probably, also at that time, then you've got, you're dealing with perimenopause, you're dealing with menopause. So that, decline in all of those sex hormones and the impact that that has on the body is phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And so, I think for me, it was, it's also about, you don't have to be, achy and sore and like, struggle to get out of bed in the morning, or struggle with that shoulder, or struggle with that neck, or have a bad night's sleeping because, your legs have been aching all night, or it doesn't have to be like that. There is another way. There is another way, definitely. And, just having that instructor that actually is there for you, listens to you, understands your needs, because every single person will be different. And, just have them, really have a session where they feel it's all about them. They're being, listened to, heard. And I really, really enjoy, one of my clients said to me the other day, last week you challenged me, this week you made me feel strong. Like that is like, for me, that's just like, yeah, job done. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that advocacy thing is such a powerful message we either learn or are forced to learn as we come into our 40s, because we do get, what do they call it when you get sort of medically shamed? We don't get listened to a lot within the mainstream health system. And, for a lot of those niggly things that can be chronic, so they do impact your life.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that advocacy is such an important message, but also, yes, for women to to be in a place where they're understood and therefore empowered, because they're with someone who's gets what they're going through. I
Yeah.
think that's the same at every stage of life. And I do think exercise is a space that does have those real divisions, doesn't it? You know, where you can feel very you can feel very marginalized if you're older, you know, or
Mm.
if you're bigger, or if
Well,
you're all those
yeah,
things, you know.
yeah, exactly. And I think why I teach, obviously I've got my private studio at home. I teach one-on-one privately. I do some semi-private sessions, but that's how I like to teach because I think that's where the magic is. And like, these days, there's a lots of franchise Pilates group stuff popping up, but what I was finding too was that I don't want to go and work out with all these, like people that are look like they're modeling for Lululemon, like, or showing their midriff, or like, um, that's not my people. That's not, the environment that I want to, exercise or do Pilates in.
Mm,
Um, so so yeah, there's a lot of that. But the other big thing too, and not sort of getting onto the hormone issue with women because that's a whole nother podcast. But like the other big thing for women and just empowering themselves with knowledge and learning more, is about the Pilates for me is about the prevention, you know, of various different conditions and diseases as well. And, I think some of the latest stats around osteoporosis in women is like, in Australia, I think we're a bit better off at the moment than the US or the UK, where it's like 1 in 3, 1 in 2 women will develop a bone fracture or will develop either osteopenia or osteoporosis after the age of 50. I think we're about 1 in 5 in Australia, but that's still significant.
mm,
So, if we're not doing anything, um, to maintain our bone health, and our bone density, then that's a that's a huge issue.
mm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Um, I think that, it's been a really interesting path how you have kind of come to here, but it does feel like you are absolutely home now and you're finding your way. You're finding out what home kind of looks like. You know, you're at the front door and you're finding out what it looks like.
Yeah, and I think part of that just is the other thing about letting go. So it's probably been a bit of a key theme for me is,
Mm,
I started to resist. Whilst I still love coaching and I love coaching in a certain way, I started to resist it. And it's like, how can I resist be not, wanting to do this anymore? Like, I've invested so much time, money, and training, and everything else. But I think, if you're really to honor yourself and to do your best work, you've really got to listen to what draws me in it, where is my attention drawn to? Where, in a day, in a week, where do I find myself drifting off in thought? What's capturing my attention? Um, and that's what I think that's when you start to see, the balance will shift, might go, up and down. But for me, then once I did that, then yeah, the Pilates has taken more of a forefront.
front seat. So
Yeah.
on that note, let's dive into storytelling a bit now,
Mm.
which is something, every business owner has to find comfort with at some point. So what would you say are your biggest challenges in telling the story of your business, or what have they been?
Um, I, it is bloody hard, like talking about yourself, um, and not so much what you do, but why you do it. Um, so, and it's one thing, like, I can write it down on paper, I can draw a map about it, I have all these, things in my head, but when it actually comes down to writing some copy around it or writing text around it or a narrative, like, just complete writer's block. That's the hardest thing. And I think, again, overthinker, perfectionist, which I am, everything's got to be perfect and not, where, so I find myself, start editing straight away rather than just, let everything just flow out. And then sit back and edit later. But yeah, it's just hard. It's just one of those things that um, writing stories about who you are and your business, um, again, it's a skill,
Mm.
definite skill.
Which you learn through practice, don't you?
Yes,
How have
yes.
you found your comfort lately with actually putting it out there and letting go a bit?
Better, definitely better. Um, I think consistency is probably the key. Um, and, it might take me to write a post about why I do what I do. It could take me 3 days to write it. Um, and, but I'm comfortable with that. Like, I just know that you know, that's how long it takes me, give myself space to be able to do that. If I write it today, then I'm not getting it out until, Friday, Saturday. Um, so yeah, so I think it's not my thing, it's not my not my profession as such. So yeah, it's going to be clunky, it's going to be challenging. Um, but I think definitely the important thing is just to keep going.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great reflection that you've come to kind of go, you're okay with that's just your, it's like what works for you works for your business. And so what if that's what works for you that you need to kind of distill over a longer period of time, then that's not a problem. That's just your way. That's your
Yeah,
way, and that's how you do it, and that's fine. And yes, then you don't give yourself quite as much to do in a week around telling your story. You just give, which I think you do. You just give yourself one thing to do, and that's fine. And
mm,
it's really rich content when it comes out.
yeah. And as you would tell me, it's probably about 3 posts in one, but that's all right.
I do. But you'll get there one day. You'll get there. Um, what about using your intuition in your business or in your storytelling? Does your
Yes.
intuition nudge you?
Oh, look, yes. And look, I'd have to say, I've probably had a bit of ahead of the game there a little bit, only because intuition plays a big part in coaching. And so um, I learnt there um, that to trust your intuition and test it. Sometimes you're on the money, sometimes you're not. But if you like, so I've sort of started in my early, well, actually not my earlier coaching days, as I was probably more mature and wiser as a coach. But because it's an advanced skill, I would say it's not, a skill that, you sort of think about or develop, when you're new into the trade. So being able to trust yourself
Mm.
and, be able to, be in front of a client and you just start to sense something and then, like be aware of it, be aware of when it presents itself, and then be able to, um, put it on the table or ask a question around it, and see, you know, you know, just see what comes back. Um, that is one, it's rewarding I think as a coach, you're able to then take the coachee to a completely new experience and different level. Um, and so with that, then it was easy for me to bring that into the Pilates work,
Mm.
you know, and the way I get it sort of um, from me out is that I will have keywords that I'll use then, so I'll say things like, I'm noticing that, are you feeling this, or I'm sensing this? Like that's how I'll lead in with it. Um,
I love that.
yeah, and yeah, so I have those, I suppose I'm prepared. So I know then if I start to sense something, or, I know what I need to say to like to get it out there. And you use it, you come from a place of curiosity and being curious in your thinking. Um, So it has a bit of an experimental feel about it. So then it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it
usually
totally
most
ties.
times, yeah,
It totally.
it will open up the conversation to a completely new level.
Yeah.
Or the client will have an insight, or they'll have one of those aha moments, whether it be coaching or Pilates. So yeah, so I'm a big advocate of really test it, test your intuition. It's there.
That's what I was
Like,
going to ask. Do you think a lot of coaches use it and don't actually realize that's what it is? That that's a tool? Because it's just not a tool that we talk about in the modern context that much, you know?
yeah, good question. I think a very experienced coach would potentially, and maybe an experienced Pilates instructor would, or any professional, any
Mm.
really. Um, but I think um, mostly people would like sense something in themselves, or it's like, so you might be, oh, I'm wondering, I sort of, you sense something, you feel something. You might notice that, the person in front of you, the client, maybe get a little bit annoyed or frustrated with something that you've said or something you've asked them to do. Um, so you would just back away from that then. Most people would just back away from that. Okay, well, let's go. Let's either different question, change the exercise up. But what happens if you lean into it? But that takes, I think, a certain level of maturity, wisdom, and skill to be able to lean into that, and courage, a lot of courage.
Mm.
But it'll definitely elevate your practice.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's that's where you get ahas and you get because you're actually you're going to the heart of something for someone a bit more. Yeah,
Mm.
I think it's of course coaching would, is a very strongly intuitive practice, but I think that we probably don't talk about it like that. So,
Yeah, and a lot of coaches, they think it's, like, and I learned this very early, um, was the same thing that attracted me to coaching was the same thing then I sort of felt like I was resisting, is that, there's a process to everything, everything. I'm a process diehard from way back, So, we go through the steps. We've got the set questions. Everyone's at this stage. We set the goals, we refine the goals, we go through the actions, we achieve the goals. But it's not, nothing is linear. And I
mhm,
think and I think most people could apply this to any business, anything that, any actions that they start to like implement, or, it's like there's roadblocks, like everybody is different. People will move at different paces. People bring their own experience, values into the room with them. So no two brains are alike, as in no two bodies are alike. And so, really, as the practitioner, then, um, you know, you've got to be able to organically go with that,
mm,
you know. And sometimes it might feel like you're taking 3 steps forward and, like 4 steps back, and that's completely, that's the messy middle, that's the work. Like um, that's the good bit. That's the juicy bit where a lot of learning happens.
and that's taking the intuitive path. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us so you're in my Heartfelt Story Circle
Mm.
group, which is my membership for business to tell, support them to tell their stories and market with authenticity, wisdom, well-being, and heart. Tell us what your favorite takeout has been or aha from the Heartfelt Story Circle so far.
One of my favorite. So maybe if so there's been many, but what I really enjoy, that not that I didn't think I would, but which I think is a really big part of the work, is the guided meditation that you weave in between everything. And even the um like you'll pull a card at the beginning of every session, and it's always seems to be on par or like just resonates with what we're going through as individuals and what we're going through as a group. And I think, like the process stuff of it is, like, and the planning and the structure stuff of it is sort of like, well, that is what it is. But the magic is in you then getting a lot deeper and understanding your business and who you are and what is your true gift to others. And that's something that, I kind of knew what that was. I was pretty sure I knew what that was when we started at the beginning of the year, but it's gotten so much deeper for me.
Oh my God, I love
Um,
that so much because that's connecting your heart to your, basically putting your heart on the page, connecting
yeah.
your heart to your business,
And
which it
that,
is already. You just haven't given it the space to kind of work out
yeah,
how it's connected exactly.
yeah. And give it, I think, you know, the circle is very like, for me, your guided intuition, not only from you as a facilitator, but as the person who participates in it, like taking note of that, like knowing, what's in front of you, what's being presented, like, and going with stop, like, and don't reject that. Like if a feather boa is presented in the box and that's what it is, like don't sort of question it, just take it, accept it,
Don't
move on.
overthink it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's added a much deeper layer of understanding who I am in my business, um, and what are still the challenges for me that I need to, like take on and overcome
Mm.
or
The,
work
the
through.
the areas, yeah,
Mm,
you still need
yeah,
clarity.
yeah,
Thank you. I
yeah.
love that so much. It's just, I mean, that's the purpose of it is to connect your heart to your communication, to build a bridge between your heart and your communication. And so it's really kind of very moving to hear that that's, been the
Good.
experience. All right, to wrap up, tell us how people can work with you and then share, where they can find you.
So all of my good social stuff is on Instagram. So I think, are you sharing the Instagram handle on the,
I'll put it in
or
the notes, but you
yeah.
can tell people here too.
So I am, I think you can search Amanda Sheedy, or it'll come up with the Good Tonic, and I've got an underscore there as well. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, although I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. Um, so I am on Facebook. But yeah, definitely Instagram is the best way. And my website, of course, thegoodtonic.com. Um, and yeah, I work Pilates. I work privately at my home studio. So I'm located in the inner western suburbs of Adelaide. I'm about 3 kilometres from the city. Um, and coaching, I do all my coaching predominantly online, or on site at clients' premises. So um, that's how people can work with me. I think that's about,
Yeah.
if I've left anything else out.
And they can just book online. And you
They can book
they can book a
online.
discovery chat too, can't they?
Yeah, so that's probably a good thing to, so every coach is different, every Pilates instructor is different. So it's all very much about the relationship. So um, I offer, like most coaches or business owners do, just a 15-20 minute free sort of like chemistry chat, discovery chat, just to see if, I'm going to be the right fit for you. And you can book that again via Instagram, through a link on my bio, or yeah, on the website.
Thank you. Now, just to finish up, to wrap up, I drew a card,
Mhm.
of course. And this is from my felt intention card deck that I created as part of my own coaching practice because I just felt I needed a tool that was specific to storytelling and the digital environment, which was kind of different to, I guess, much of what was already out there. And yeah, they are, as Amanda, you've mentioned them, they are they blow my mind. They're weirdly powerful little cards. So I think it's really interesting that the one I drew was "There's no right or wrong in being you,"
Ah, yeah, there you go. On
which is
cue.
on cue, exactly
Yeah,
what you've been
yeah.
talking about that you're coming to, and it's really wonderful to hear, and it's been wonderful to have you in the group. Um, as part of this inaugural group in 2025. Thank
Thanks,
you for
Jess.
chatting.
Thank you for having me.